Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. You're looking at the aftermath of a game that we played yesterday. I know some of you wanted me to film it turn by turn. I had some comments there, people wanted me to do that, but you know, some days you just want to just play a game, you know, not worrying about all the filming and everything. Just have fun with your friends, and so that's what we did. Plus we wanted to try to get the game in one day, and it adds to the time if you're going to be filming after every round and everything. But I thought I'd recap the game as best as I could remember anyway. What happened, so you'd see what happened. First of all, I was the Axis, and Panzer King and Kyle were the Allies. We had thought that there was going to be another guy here, and it was going to be his first game ever. But and that's another reason why I didn't start filming. It's not really fair to film somebody when they're playing their very first game, right? And plus that also adds to greatly to the amount of time that it takes to play a game. And like I said, we wanted to finish this in one day. So anyway, it was me against the two of them. They were the Allies. So what happened first? Germany, let me see, they lost one plane in the first round. I think they lost it, actually no, they didn't lose a plane in the first round, but they did lose planes throughout the game though. Not too many though, like they still have a bit of an air force. They got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 planes on the board, and they start with 12, so that's not bad. I think I probably bought at least 4 throughout the game though, so I did lose a few through the game. But Germany actually had a pretty good game. First of all, let me just tell you, I'm going to show you the marker down there. The nuclear marker is on 6, so the game went 6 rounds. Now, first round, about the only thing different that happened, like Germany was a fairly normal turn. I did not go G1 Barbarossa, I just took out the neutrals and took out France, of course. There was no problem taking out France. I lost all my infantry, but still had all 4 of my mechs when I had taken out Paris. But about the only interesting thing that happened, or weird thing that happened, I went for the ping pong move, where you go from Greater Southern Germany to Yugoslavia, and then after the first round, then you non-combat move them over to here. Well, I got 5 hits in the first round, so I took out Yugoslavia. But that's okay though, because I wasn't planning on doing G1 Barbarossa anyway. And so I had time for those guys to catch up, and it really didn't hinder me at all. In fact, I'm just wondering if maybe that's, you know, if you're not going G1, if that's not better off just taking that out anyway, because that is worth $2. So I think it was G2. I put a minor factory down here, like I didn't bother on G1. I wanted to get a bunch of infantry that I put on Germany, infantry and artillery, that they could start marching their way down here, right? And that actually worked pretty good as well. Like before I bought that factory and put it on the first turn, and again going on turn 2, it actually worked pretty well with putting slow movers on Germany and then getting them a head start moving. So I had a constant movement of slow movers and fast movers in there, because then I put the tanks on, of course. And I actually never did buy any mechs, but 4 mechs made it to Russia, and there were the 4 mechs that started in Western Germany. They'd taken out Paris, and then they went all the way to Moscow. So on turn 6, I was able to take out Moscow, and this is what I had left. Like when I came in here, I had the 4 mechs, and I had some infantry and 9 tanks, so 2, 4, 5. So I lost 4 tanks here, taking out Moscow. Plus I had this tactical bomber and this fighter that was in the fight as well. These British tanks here came afterwards, like I had come from this space here. One of the things that they tried to do before I took it out, like the Russians, they've got a bunch of guys here now, but they've congregated them from different places, like from down here and back here in Samara. But they took everything they had in Russia and they went after my stack where I had the 9 tanks and I had lots of infantry and everything there. And so they went after that stack, and they didn't do very well. I still had 2 infantry left, and then I was able to assault on the next round, right? That was in turn 5, I guess, they went after me. And also, the British, before I went, like I was able to come with tanks, and actually these planes here were in Ukraine. And so they had put an air base down here on Malta. And the British Air Force had stationed itself in Malta all game. And so they brought up the Air Force into Ukraine. Plus, they had 3 tanks over here in the Caucasus. They have a factory down here in Iraq. So they brought up 3 tanks and their whole Air Force. And they couldn't take out, I think I had 6 tanks and these 2 planes there. I still had 2 tanks and 2 planes at the end. So they didn't roll very well in the first round, and I rolled really well in that first round. I don't think it was rolling that swayed the game one way or the other. Like we both had good luck and bad luck throughout the game, and it wasn't all at once. You know what I mean? Where if you get bad rolling for 3 or 4 turns in a row, then it's just too late to recover after that. Rolling was pretty even throughout the game, I think. So on the last turn, on my last turn, I'd taken out Moscow. I'd also taken out Leningrad as well. I didn't bother going after it. Like I had a big stack here, but I didn't want to open this up for them, right? Like I'd made that mistake last time with Panzer King. I'd come in too early, and then he was able to come back and take this out. And he had bombers over in England, so I wasn't able to ever rebuild the Navy there. So the Russians held this. So I didn't want to ever make that mistake again. Anyway, so I came in late and took out Leningrad. Let's just go down to the other side of the board. Russia didn't do anything on their first turn except for just move around and place units and stuff. The British, what they did was they did the Taranto raid, and they were successful. I didn't scramble. So they put the factory down in Cairo on turn 1. And I really don't like sea line, so even though they did that, I didn't bother going sea line on them. I just don't think sea line's a very good move. It's exciting and all, you know, it looks cool, but I don't think it helps you win the game if you're the Germans. I think it just allows the Allies a better chance to win if you go sea line in the game. Anyway, they put the factory down, but one of the things they'd done when they were going sea line is that they took 2 cruisers into Sea Zone 97 after the Italian boats. Like the cruiser that comes from Sea Zone 91 over here would normally come over here and take out a transport and a destroyer along with the plane from Gibraltar. The British plane from the Gibraltar. That's normally what you would do in here. But he decided just to go with the plane. And so what happened was we both hit each other in the first round, the plane and the destroyer, which left the Italian transport. And so I had 2 Italian transports to work with on the first round when the Italian turn came around, which meant I took out the factory in Egypt. Because another thing he could have done that would have helped was leave 1 guy in Alexandria, but he moved everybody back. And so I was able to blitz through with a tank and a mech into Cairo, and also come down with 4 units and with the bomber, right? And so I took out Egypt, and then he took it back, and then I took it from him again. Because then I moved these guys up from Tobruk, and I had taken from Ethiopia, I had taken this spot, right? So then I came in and took it again, and then he took it back again, and I had run out of units by then, because he, like I was saying earlier, he had his whole Air Force on Malta. So I only had my boats for 1 or 2 turns, the Italian boats for 1 or 2 turns. Anyway, eventually the British took over down there, but I did manage to keep him out of the Med for a few turns, though, because of owning Cairo like that. So the Italians were able to gain a couple of the bonuses for no ships in the Mediterranean. You see a bunch of ships in there now, Americans and British, and that was their last ditch effort. 2 turns ago, I guess it would have been, they came up and took Rome. The Americans had gone first and they weren't able to take it. And then the British came up and they mopped them up, and they took 23 bucks from the Italians. And the Italians had lots of stuff on northern Italy, so they were easily able to take it back. The Americans didn't have any ships left. all they had was transports, which Kyle's not a very experienced player, so he didn't have a very balanced Navy, right? Like he had all his Navy in there. Like I've taken a lot of his Navy out with planes, but all he had back here was transports. So he brought the transports to 91. Even though we all talked about it, we knew that I could reach it with a bomber, but he still had this Navy over here so that he could go and get the dudes from Morocco and come back. It would have been faster than him building another Navy up there and then coming down to 91 and then going in there. They knew they were getting short on time because I was getting close to Moscow and Japan was starting to take over. So they wanted to do that as quick as possible. But in the meantime, what I did was I took a shot at their Navy with my planes, and then I've rebuilt some of my Air Force up there in Germany. So I've got enough planes now to take this out. But anyway, on the second wave, like 2 turns later they came in, I had enough stuff here. So there was more on here, but I put some German stuff down here and everything. And they pretty much had to do it, right? Like they didn't have a choice. They had to do something because the game was pretty much lost. So they thought they'd try to take one of my capitals anyway. But as you can see, they fell short there. And this is the stuff that they had left down there. A valiant effort, but they fell short. So that's basically the story in Europe. They built this factory on turn 1, and I think this factory over here on turn 2, but they never actually put anything over there for a while because we were fighting down here over this factory, right? They kept having to draw all their resources to Cairo to take the factory and then to secure it, and then they were able to put some stuff on Iraq. And by then it was a little bit too late to come up here and save everything. Like it looks pretty good now, but they just moved those guys up there. Like those 3 tanks were down here. Before that, it looked a lot worse for the Russians. But yeah, they did that. And then you can see, you might have noticed the roundel here on Turkey and on Spain there. I had some company drop by, another new player from a town near us. I've been talking to him online, and so he stopped by and to meet us and everything. We're going to get together for a game. Anyway, while I was talking to him, the 2 guys had decided that they were going to surrender. So while they were surrendering, they thought, hey, let's attack the neutrals. And so the Americans took Spain and the British took Turkey. So, I mean, you might have looked at that and thought, ooh, I wonder what happened. They went after the strict neutrals. Well, nothing, because I didn't get a turn after that. In fact, I think the British didn't even bother. I don't even know if they put their stuff on, right? They just, they went and attacked the neutrals. I didn't even have any part in the rolling. They were rolling it between the 2 of them, so they just, they figured they had to do something. Well, let's kill the neutrals. Yeah, fuck the neutrals. Anyway, another thing it looks like I just noticed this morning that they did on the last turn was he came and took out Borneo here. I did have the Money Islands for a few turns there, but anyway, he's got Borneo now, and it looks like I don't have any transports in range. But as you can see, I am just about on Calcutta now. Like I got a bunch of tanks down here and everything. I'd just taken Burma for the first time. So it probably would have taken me a couple of turns, but I've got a couple of minor factories over here just pumping out the tanks, right? Plus I've got the only Navy on this side of the board over here. So I mean, Calcutta was gonna fall, right? These guys had their Navy up in the Money Islands. They'd actually owned most of the Money Islands. I think I went J3. That's what I did, J3 attack. And so they had taken most of the Money Islands and everything, and then I came down and took their Navy out to get the Money Islands. And on my last turn, I guess turn 6 over here, I had taken out Hawaii. So all I needed was Calcutta to give me my 6th victory city on the Pacific side of the board. The American Navy, I believe turn 5, they came up here and attacked. Might have been turn 4. They came up here and attacked C-Zone 6, and I had much of my Navy in C-Zone 6, and they were unsuccessful. I had a couple planes I could scramble. I had my 6 kamikazes, so that didn't work out very well for them. Early in the game, like first turn, the Russians went and they stacked everything on a Mur except for 2 dudes. They put 2 dudes back here, and 16 dudes and 2 anti-aircraft here. Never a good move to stack everything on a Mer. I came over here. I just, like didn't even worry about the Chinese. I did attack the Chinese as much as I could, but I took most of my power and I came up here and took out a Mer. So this is basically as fast as you can get to Moscow. And that might have made a difference, like if they'd have just left with all their units and put them on Moscow, then maybe Germany couldn't have taken them out right now. And as you can see, the Americans had arrived over on European shores, but it was too late, right? But instead, though, it was the Japanese that made their way all the way down here with very little resistance. These 3 guys have moved all the way from basically from Amur up to Samara here. That's how far they've made it. China's been out for a couple of turns, I think, a turn or 2. So they did manage to take China out pretty well. They did lots of strategic bombing on the India factory down here. So that's one of the reasons why the British weren't able to help out very much with China there. They did do some, like it looks better for me now. This was, the British actually looked pretty good maybe a turn or 2 ago. But the Japanese, they've been pumping out tanks ever since the second turn, right? Like I bought this factory on the first turn. I haven't done that in a while. Usually I buy the transports. But this time I decided to go back to buying a factory here for the first turn. And so they've been pumping out 3 tanks every single turn, right? I kind of missed having Japanese tanks because in Global War 36, you don't buy tanks with the Japanese. Everybody's tanks there cost $6, the same as in this game, but Japanese tanks cost $8. And so it's just not worth it, right? So I haven't used a Japanese tank in a while, and so that's why I went with the factory in this game, and sure, it turned out pretty good there. Japan lost the odd plane here and there, but for the most part, they've still got a very powerful air force. As you can see, though, both players are fairly inexperienced. Panzer King's getting to be a better player, but both of them are pretty inexperienced, and so the game was pretty lopsided, right? Like Japan has made it all the way to Moscow, and Germany has made it all the way to Moscow, right? Like he hardly ever put anything on here. I didn't even bat an eyelash at that. I just, like I said, I really don't care for Sea Lion. I don't think it's a very good move. At this point, it's a good move. You know what I mean? Like if I wanted to put a bunch of stuff, boats in here now, certainly that would be another way of gaining that victory city and taking the British out of the game, even if it's temporarily, depending on what the Americans are doing in the Atlantic, of course, right? I mean, it doesn't do you much good to spend a bunch of money on boats just to have the Americans take it back after 1 turn. So anyway, I noticed too this morning that he put a whole bunch of bombers on here. That's Kyle, he was playing the Americans. But again, that would not have been a very good move in this case, because all he had in here was a couple of anti-aircraft guns and mechanized infantry, and all I had to do, of course, was just attack it with this. Like he's probably thinking he could attack my Navy with that, but I go before he does, and so why not just attack his bombers that defend at 1, right? There goes all those bombers he just bought. So anyway, that's pretty much everything that happened. Yeah, it was fun though. It was nice being able to just kick back and play a game of Global 40. I haven't played in a while with more than just one other opponent. Quite often it turns out it's just 2 of you, and that's fun too, but I think it's more fun when you have more than just 2 people. And so that was fun, and not worrying about all the filming and everything, just enjoying the company and having a nice lunch, and just having a good time, right? So I don't think there's much more to tell you about this game. Let's show you over here. Like he was doing good over here in North America. He had lots of stuff over here. Not any boats, but I mean that stuff could have been utilized if all of this stuff wasn't going on over here, right? He just needed more of a navy, right? The Americans were probably what was really lacking in this game. They like when he was coming over here, I didn't want to tell him what to do, even though he's an experienced player. But even like just coming at that navy, It did not look like a very good attack. They were already starting to lose though, so I think that he was getting desperate, but I think he was getting desperate too soon because the Americans had just entered the war a turn or two earlier, right? And if he'd just been a little bit more patient, then he would have seen that with all that money they were getting, he could have built an overwhelming navy and came over here after me, or a bigger navy and put it down over there on that side of the map, right? So anyway, that's what it looks like from the war room in Prince George, British Columbia. So thanks for joining me for this video. Take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.